I lived with my boyfriend in a basement for 7 years and wrote dozens of songs for him. Later, he became famous. He wrote a love song by himself and blushed during an interview, saying it was for the most important person in his life. Then, I found out it was for his female assistant. When we were eating, Bella suddenly grabbed me excitedly. Nick released a new song, and it's a sweet one this time. I took her phone and saw Nick in a video interview. The host asked him, "We heard you wrote this song for someone special. Can you tell us who that is?" Nick smiled at the camera and said, "It's for a very important person to me. She has been with me for a long time, and has given me a lot of inspiration." "Stop pretending." Bella covered her face. "Nick is seriously too much." I smiled but met Nick's gaze in the video. I had been with Nick for 7 years, and I wrote lyrics for all his songs while he composed the music. He had written several sorrowful love songs for me, yet this was his first upbeat and sweet song. As the video continued to play, Nick's deep and textured voice filled the room. I propped my chin and listened. This song wasn't written by me, and it really felt different from his previous songs. But when the chorus hit, my heart skipped a beat, and my ears started buzzing. I paused for a long time, then dragged the progress bar back with trembling fingers. That line of lyrics hit me hard. I didn't mishear it. 3 moles on your back, forever etched in my heart. But I don't have 3 moles on my back. In an instant, my mind went blank. Everything in front of me seemed to disappear, and when I came to, I felt a chilling coldness. Bella looked puzzled. "Why do you look pale? Are you feeling unwell?" I steadied myself and stood up, forcing a smile. "I'm fine. Just remembered I left some clothes out to dry at home. I'll head back first." Nick didn't come home until late that night. I was sitting in the living room with the lights off. He was startled when he turned the lights on and clutched his chest. "Why are you sitting here? You scared me to death." I looked at him and said softly, "You released a new song." "Yeah," Nick said as he bent down to take off his shoes. "So what? Was it good?" I trembled and asked, "Who was it written for?" "The 3 moles on the back. Who do they belong to?" Nick paused before looking up indifferently. "It's just for the rhyme, of course, it's for you." I gave him a cold stare. Nick walked over, hugged me, and started to act cute. "It's the first song I wrote both the lyrics and music for. You know I'm only good at composing, not writing lyrics." I had no choice but to force the rhyme. "If you don't like it, I'll change it." His eyes under the neon lights outside the window seemed like a kaleidoscopic dream. Soft yet unreal. "I can change it to the mole on your nose tip. How about that?" I sighed in relief and shrugged off his hand. "No need. But don't write such ambiguous lyrics next time. You scared me today." He hugged me and swayed. "Got it. You just think too much." Late at night, Nick was already sound asleep, but I was still wide awake, staring blankly. Frankly speaking, I'm a 28-year-old adult. Nick's explanation was laughably weak, and I didn't believe it. But I didn't want to believe his heart had wandered to someone else, so I forced myself to believe him. We had been together for 9 years since we first met, when I was 19. Back then, I was a sophomore in a top university's literature department, and he was a street performer under a bridge with his guitar. I still remember the first time I saw him, singing "My Heart Will Go On" by the seaside. Sunshine spilled over him, his side profile shrouded in shadows cast by his chiseled features, eyebrows furrowed with a touch of rebellious defiance. I thought to myself, this guy is really good looking, like a painting. I couldn't help but stop and listen to him. To be honest, Nick's English was a bit awkward, but his voice had a unique texture. It was gravelly yet clear. After he finished singing, I put $100 into his tip box. He raised an eyebrow and looked at my face with his hazel eyes. Generous, huh? "Hey girl, I'll sing you an extra song. What do you want to hear?" I forgot what song I requested, only remembering I listened to one song after another until the sunset turned the sky into a blend of molten rock and diluting gold, like some surreal yet real oil painting palette. After that, I came to listen to him sing every day, tipping $100 each time. On the 5th day, he grabbed my hand. "That's enough. Aren't you a student? Save some money for food." I blurted out, "I have money." He laughed, then after a while, patted my head. "All right, you have money. Then treat me to a meal." We had seafood noodles. He ended up paying the bill and told me, "From now on, I'll sing whatever song you want for free. No need to give me money." Before I left, I impulsively asked, "Can I have your contact information?" Love comes without reason. Soon, I moved into his dark and narrow basement and lived with him. Only then did I know Nick always had a dream of becoming a musician. He had been in Beijing for over a year, waiting for someone who appreciated his talent. We thought our hard times would soon be over, but unexpectedly, we stayed in that basement for 7 years. Now he has finally become famous. We can afford to buy a house and won't have to suffer anymore. I don't want to believe that after being with him for so long, he would fall for someone else. I can't believe it. The next day, I went to Nick's company unannounced. The receptionist didn't recognize me. After I called Nick, he hurriedly came down to get me. I held up the lunchbox in my hand. Didn't you say you wanted soup? It's been cooking since this morning. But there wasn't a hint of joy on his face. He seemed impatient and slightly flustered. Why are you here? I'll drink it when I get home tonight. I'm busy recording a song right now. I lowered my head, my voice emotionless. I just wanted to see the place where you're making your dreams come true. Nick was about to say something when a girl suddenly walked out from behind him. She had her long hair tied up, was wearing a Burberry trench coat, and looked very classy. She smiled as she took the soup from my hand. You must be his wife, right? It's okay, Nick. Let her come up. I'll show her around. Nick hesitated, a bit frustrated. All right then. The girl gave me a smile that seemed to hold a hint of provocation, making me feel uncomfortable, but I followed them up anyway. Nick reluctantly went back to recording, pushed away by the girl named Christina. She gave him a playful push. No slacking. Leave your wife to me. Nick glanced at her and had no choice but to leave. What do you want to drink? After Nick left, Christina's smile faded, replaced by a polite but haughty demeanor. Coffee or red wine? Our coffee beans are sourced from the Shangri-La estate. They are really good. I declined, but she didn't mind. She casually sat next to me and poured a glass of red wine. French wine, have a taste. I didn't understand her intentions, but saw her elegantly swirl the wine, casually saying, red wine needs to be aged for a while to develop its aroma, but it shouldn't be stored too long. Too long and it'll spoil and have to be thrown away. Wouldn't you agree? It suddenly dawned on me. She was implying that my relationship with Nick had deteriorated over time. This girl seemed to be interested in Nick. I let out a small laugh. The length of aging is up to the owner, not for others to comment on. Christina didn't get angry. She just smiled and changed the topic. Do you like Nick's new song? I replied cautiously, yeah, it's good. Why? I think it's great too. It's his first time writing his own lyrics and music. This style really suits him, much better than the old depressing stuff. She said nonchalantly, oh, by the way, my zipper seems to be stuck. Can you take a look? Without waiting for my response, she stood in front of me and pulled down her dress's zipper. The zipper smoothly came down, revealing her fair back. Sitting there, I suddenly felt cold all over, staring at the delicate butterfly bones. My mind went blank, and my ears rang like drums. Around the butterfly bone, there were 3 small moles marked by deep kiss marks. Christina saw my reaction, zipped up her dress with satisfaction, and walked out, feeling like I was in a daze. I followed her out a moment later. Passing by the recording studio, I saw Nick holding Christina. His back was to the door, so he didn't see me. He was hugging her waist, smiling helplessly. She's still here. Don't make trouble. Turns out, I had become a stranger to him. Christina glanced at me with malice in her eyes and whispered, so what if she finds out? It's time to lay the cards on the table. You don't prefer her, do you? How's that possible? Nick immediately denied. I don't feel anything when I touch her now, like my left hand touching my right hand. You have no idea how dull she actually is. Always revolving around me, unlike you. So alluring. Christina sneered. She even made soup for you. Does she think you're starving here? Nick glanced at the thermos on the table with disdain. Boring. He then picked up the thermos and casually tossed it towards the trash. The soup I had started making at 5 in the morning ended up in the garbage. Just like me, discarded and unwanted. He leaned close to Christina's neck, his voice rough with intimacy and a hint of laughter. Let's not talk about her. It's a mood killer. Their remaining words were lost in whispers. Christina's lips were slightly swollen, and she gave me a triumphant smile. I don't remember how I walked out. I only recalled Christina's final mocking words. Now, who's the outsider? It's best if you leave on your own. Nick is no longer someone you can cling to. Don't you get it? You are in 2 different worlds now. After walking a few steps, I turned back to look up at the brightly lit building. This was the headquarters of the Best Record Company. It's where Nick's dream began. We used to take evening walks here, and Nick would enthusiastically point it out to me. Stella, one day I'll work here. I'd always smile and hold his hand. You definitely will. But those years were so hard. Talented people from all over the country flocked to New York for a chance to make it big. There were so many singers. He didn't stand a chance to shine. I had to write lyrics for him, record songs to upload, write resumes, and submit them. I didn't have time for a real job. At our lowest, we huddled in a tiny basement, eating a bowl of plain noodles together. He ate and cried, his tears falling into the noodles. In a panic, I asked, what's wrong? Nick, with his head down, mumbled, Stella, we're like two sore rats. I was stunned and couldn't say a word. He was right, we were worse than sore rats. Trying to make it. Why is it so hard? At night, we couldn't bear to turn on the air conditioner. So we just soaked up some heat from the underfloor heating on the first floor. The bone-chilling dampness crept into our bones. Nick's whole body was ice cold, but he still held me in his arms. He asked, Stella, you were meant to have a great future. Do you regret being with me and eating dirt? There was a cautious fear in his voice. I just snuggled closer to his chest and whispered, I don't mind the hardship, and I don't regret it. Nick seemed to cry again. He didn't know why at that time, but he was always so prone to tears. I felt a warm drop on the top of my head. He buried his head in my neck, hoarsely saying, I won't let you down. Beijing's winter wind pierced through the lights of the night. I stared for a long time, until my eyes hurt and tears fell. Only those willing to be deceived remember promises. He probably long forgot them. When I got home, I started packing. Actually, Nick's distancing had been a long time coming. He began coming home later, and sharing less of his life with me. I still remember when he first got into the record company. He sent me videos every day. He was like a child who found a new toy, even showing me his lunch. Today's lunch is steak, but it's not as good as yours. Darling, the yogurt here is so good. I'll buy some for you when I come home. Funny how even after it gets to this point, you can't help but think of the good times. But those memories that used to make me smile turned into sharp knives, cutting me open, leaving me bleeding. I don't remember when he stopped sending messages. Sometimes I texted him 2 or 3 times a day, and he never replied. Only occasionally, when he needed something, he'd respond with a couple of hums. Probably around that time, he already had someone else by his side. I just didn't want to believe it, always deceiving myself. Habits are terrifying things. Getting used to being with someone, even when it hurts you, you refuse to part, forcing a false completeness. But now Christina ripped it all open in front of me. I could no longer play dumb. I bent down, my tears dripping onto the floor. How did it come to this? How did it get this way? I sat in the living room for a long time, before Nick came back. His demeanor gave nothing away, as he laughed and hung his coat on the rack. The soup smells so good tonight, hun. Can you make it again tomorrow? I slowly turned to look at him and softly asked, did you drink it? Of course. His expression was the same as every other day, no flaws to be seen. I couldn't help but wonder if every day before, he had been out with someone else and then wore a mask when he came home to me. Only I was foolish enough to think everything was the same. Nick put on his slippers and walked, saying, the manager said my new song's performance was just okay. Not as good as my previous one. He said the old style suits me better. Honey, when will you write me another? He didn't finish, as I interrupted. Nick, let's break up. He seemed not to understand. What did you say? I lowered my head and I said, let's break up. Did you hear some nonsense today? Nick suddenly panicked. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I stubbornly forced them back. Trying to stay calm, I saw it. When you held her today, I was at the door. Nick's hand reaching for mine froze. After a while, he hurriedly said, I just had a momentary lapse, honey. Please forgive me this once. I don't have feelings for her. She just kept tempting me. You believe me, right? He fell to his knees in front of me, eyes reddening. I can't live without you. With her, it was just a fling. I carefully studied Nick's features. Compared to 9 years ago, he had become more handsome and confident. Now wealthy, his youthful inexperience had been replaced by the charm of a mature man. Maybe because I hadn't looked at him properly in a long time, the man in front of me felt somewhat unfamiliar. I shook my head. Stop talking. I'm leaving soon. Give me 11. 11 is the turtle we raised together. We named it 11 because we bought it on my birthday, October 1st. Back then, I really wanted a pet. I loved the blue and golden striped cat, but it was too expensive for us. Nick must have noticed my disappointment, so on my birthday, he brought back a mysterious box. To my surprise, inside was a small turtle, barely the size of a palm, withdrawing all its limbs and head in fright. I laughed and scolded him. I wanted something furry, and you got me something shelled. Nick hastily explained, raise it well, and it can grow fur. Haven't you heard of green-haired turtles? After a moment, he looked down, a little disappointed. I don't have money now, but when I do, I'll get you one, okay? I hugged the box, kissed his cheek. I love it. Later, we called 11 our son. When I was too lazy to change the water, Nick would clean it while murmuring to the turtle, look, your mom doesn't care if you live or die. It's your dad who treats you well. But now, he hadn't looked at 11 for a long time. Nick kept explaining. He regretfully said, I just couldn't control myself. That woman is too forward. Honey, please believe me. It's my fault. I'm stupid. Punish me. Just don't leave me. Pitifully, he lay on my lap, He always knew how to handle me. When he secretly sold a song I wrote for him, I was very angry and mentioned breaking up. He also humbled himself and begged until I forgave him. I stroked Nick's hair and softly said, "Nick, seeking something new is an animal instinct, but we shouldn't be mere animals." Nick had a moment of pause, a hint of impatience flashing, but he suppressed it. "You're right, I understand." I continued, "You're not the only one bored with this relationship. After a long time, all the novelty fades. Feeling uninterested is normal. But Nick, I've also had chances to betray you. It's not that I couldn't. I just didn't want to hurt you." Nick stayed silent. When I was in school, a few boys pursued me. One even was the top student from the neighboring class, who asked for my Instagram after a debate competition and wanted to take me out to dinner. I didn't hesitate to reject him. But later, Nick saw our chat history. It was the first time I'd seen him that angry, demanding to know if I had feelings for that guy. I was confused and yelled, "You don't trust me." Nick's eyes slowly reddened. He squatted down, covering his face with his hands, his voice trembling slightly. "Stella, you don't know how scared I am. Why would someone like you want to be with someone like me? Sometimes I feel like this is a dream, and I'm afraid you'll disappear when I wake up." I hugged him tightly, promising I'd never leave. Who could have thought he'd be the one to leave first? Slowly but firmly, I pushed him away. "Nick, we can't be together anymore." He looked up, a mix of anger and embarrassment that I'd rejected him after he'd begged for so long. Now he's famous, with people shouting Mr. Nick wherever he goes. He's no longer the Nick who hid in a basement. Sure enough, Nick stood up, his expression changing to ice. "Stella, I was wrong, I admit it. But with my status now, women throwing themselves at me is normal. I've turned many down. I'm not a saint. So what if I make mistakes sometimes? How many of my peers are still with their original girlfriends? There's only a few left, including me. Isn't that enough? What haven't I given you?" I looked at the man I loved for so many years, opened my mouth, but couldn't speak. He had changed so much, becoming unrecognizable. I stood up in silence, grabbed my suitcase, and headed for the door. I didn't want the breakup to be ugly, with shouting and crying. Two people who know each other's weaknesses tearing each other apart. This is it. Nick exploded in fury, sweeping everything off the table. "You think I can't survive without you? There are plenty of people lining up to write lyrics for me now. Don't come back if you leave." "Stella," he called, his voice trembling. I didn't look back, holding 11 as I closed the door. A door that, like mountains and seas, completely separated us. After leaving Nick, I found a random place to stay. A simple, small house, not as luxurious as the villa he bought later, but not as bad as the old basement. I left behind the bags and clothes he bought me, taking only a few t-shirts and 11's water bowl. Heartbreak feels like a wound on the heart. At first, it's unbearably painful, keeping you up all night, especially touching the cold sheets beside you or accidentally calling out a familiar name, and being met with silence that drives you mad. But no matter how deep the wound, it eventually heals. Gradually, the pain became numb, and I could sleep again. After the breakup, I didn't quit songwriting. I had written lyrics for Nick for 9 years. At first, we both were unknown. Then one of his songs suddenly went viral, making us both famous. I always used the pen name Stella, and never appeared in public. Now, I can sell lyrics for $2,000 a word. A song of a couple hundred words easily earns tens of thousands. Nick never allowed me to write for others, and I went along with it. But now, I don't need to worry about that. One day in June, I was at Bella's place for dinner, and suddenly saw Nick's interview on TV. The reporter's questions were sharp. "Netizens say your recent songs are just filler, lacking the feel they used to have. What do you think of this?" Nick forced a smile, but knowing him so well, I could see the anger in his eyes. He tried to appear relaxed. "Well, I think a good singer should develop in multiple directions, not be stuck in one style. This is my new creative attempt. I hope people don't label me rigidly." The reporter pressed on. "But don't you think this style doesn't suit you? I heard Mole made it to the worst songs list this year. Everyone thinks it's vulgar." Nick couldn't keep it together, storming off with a cold face. The manager quickly helped him leave. "Please move aside. Our artist isn't feeling well today." "Make way," Bella sneered. "Looks like the public has sharp eyes. All those songs about moles and floating beds, it's just about that stuff, isn't it? Gross. And he dares to sing those." Honestly, Nick's songs became trash without you. I silently watched the TV. Nick wasn't talentless. Creation often needs inspiration. We had nothing but each other back then, fueling endless creative sparks. When I wrote lyrics, we constantly discussed and revised them, polishing each song meticulously. Now, he lives in a mansion, drives luxury cars, spending his days with various women. His muse, wants me, is now discarded. His heart's probably too full of materialism and lust to leave room for songwriting. He gave me the rights to all our songs to show his love back then. Now, he can't sing those songs anymore and has to churn out garbage lyrics instead. On the way back, I got a call. The moment the woman on the other end started speaking, I knew who it was. "Christina, let's talk," she demanded in a commanding tone. 16 South Street, Moonlight Coffee, 3 p.m. I didn't say anything and just hung up. A moment later, the phone rang again, frantically. I simply blocked the number. When I got home, I was a bit surprised to see 2 unexpected guests at my door. Christina glared at me angrily. "You dare hang up on me?" I replied coldly. "What? You think you're so important I can't hang up on you?" She was speechless and about to say something, but Nick stopped her. Nick looked at me with a complicated expression, then spoke after a long pause. "Stella, let's talk. You're here for the copyrights, right?" I asked as I unlocked the door. "Yes. I need the rights to these songs. Almost all event organizers require me to sing my previous songs, and the company needs to reclaim the rights." I sat on the couch and said nonchalantly, "Fine. How much are you willing to pay?" Before Nick could speak, Christina stood up and shouted, "These songs were originally written by Nick. Why should he pay you?" I glanced at her. "Did I talk to you? If you can't keep your mouth shut, get out. We don't need to talk." Christina clenched her fists angrily and sat back down. Nick sighed. "I know you've been through a lot with me over the years. Name your price. I won't argue." I thought for a moment. 12 million. "What? Are you crazy?" Christina's eyes widened. "This is extortion." I chuckled coldly. "I have the rights to 27 songs, each bringing me at least 2 million annually. 12 million is a friendly price. Those songs were written by Nick. They have nothing to do with you. You've already enjoyed a lot of benefits from being with him, and now you have the nerve to ask for more. If you don't believe me, we can sue you." Christina was furious. I looked at Nick. "Is that how you feel too?" I remembered those evenings with him holding his guitar, begging me to write lyrics for him. "Honey, could you write me another song?" I would set aside my work, writing resumes for him, and say helplessly, "Show me the melody." Nick was always impatient, always in a hurry. I often stayed up late, writing lyrics with hands so cold they could barely move. Late at night, he would wake up drowsily, bury his head in my arms, and mumble, "Honey, thank you for your hard work." I would warm my hands under the covers and stroke his hair. "Sleep a bit more. I'm almost done." So many nights like that. I couldn't believe he wouldn't remember. But Nick turned away, avoiding my gaze, and said softly, "Stella, you know I can't come up with that much money all at once. Why must we be so hostile?" Christina's right. These songs, they're my work too. My clenched fingers slowly dug into my palm. I laughed softly. "Then there's nothing to talk about. Goodbye." As they left, Christina didn't forget to threaten me with a sneer. "Stella, if you won't take the easy way, don't blame us for being ruthless." At first, I didn't understand what she meant, until 3 days later, when my personal information spread wildly online. Then, I panicked. On the trending topic list, next to Nick's ex-girlfriend, a red explosive tag appeared. I clicked on it and saw that Nick had posted a lengthy article. In it, he apologized to the public, saying that his ex-girlfriend refused to transfer the copyrights, so he might not be able to sing those songs anymore. Fans exploded, furiously cursing me. Why are the copyrights with the ex-girlfriend? These songs are Nick's. If he can't sing them, who can? It's such a waste of good material. My mind went blank. I clicked on Christina's account, as fans had tagged her. Christina also posted a lengthy article, accusing me, the greedy ex-girlfriend. In her narrative, I became the ex who had dumped Nick when he was poor, now coming back for revenge and refusing to release the copyrights, just for money and spite. A few netizens even dug up my personal information, revealing my name, age, school, and even home address. Fans were using the vilest words to insult me, even photoshopping obituary photos of me. Some even threatened to come find me. This is what they meant by revenge. They aimed to utterly destroy my life. Looking at my pale face in the mirror, I picked up the phone and called Nick. The ringtone lasted a long time before he answered. My voice trembled uncontrollably. "Nick, did you do this?" I still held a shred of hope. We once loved each other so much. Even if we couldn't end up together, it shouldn't end like this. But Nick was silent. After a long pause, he spoke softly. "Stella, I had no other choice. If you release the copyrights, I can suppress this." After hanging up, I sat by the window for a long time. Honestly, I had imagined many possibilities. Maybe Nick's company did it, or maybe Christina did. Never did I think it was Nick. I remembered the winter of 2013, when I had a severe appendicitis. almost causing a bowel perforation. It was pretty serious. I was in so much pain that I passed out. When I woke up, I was already in the hospital room. In the freezing winter, Nick was outside my window in just a thin sleepwear, his eyes bloodshot. I struggled to reach out and touch his hand. "I'm all right. Don't be scared." Nick's tears fell immediately. I've never seen Nick cry in front of others. Even when someone threw his resume in his face and told him to leave, he'd just curse a bit in front of me and then go back to smiling. But with me, it seemed like he let all his vulnerability out. He gripped my hand tightly, voice hoarse. "Stella, if you're gone, I don't want to live either." I closed my eyes and then opened them again. The man who loved me so deeply was blown away by the wind, disappearing forever. The online attacks against me grew worse and worse, fueled by their instigation. The new company I found politely suggested I take a break at home, basically meaning they wanted me to leave. Walking down the street, people would point at me no matter where I was. One of Nick's crazed fans even threw a cup of milk tea at my face, screaming hysterically, "Bitch, give the songs back to Nick." People around just watched indifferently. I wiped off the milk tea and went home in humiliation. Back home, my phone kept ringing non-stop. Since my phone number got leaked, endless calls and texts bombarded my phone every day. It's hard to imagine how strangers with no grudges could say such vile things. "Give the rights back to Nick, or I'll kill your whole family." So many people wanted me dead, yet I didn't even know what I had done wrong. Even my parents started getting harassed. That day, my mom called me, but didn't speak for a long time. Finally, I heard her holding back tears and cautiously ask, "Stella, how are you holding up?" At that moment, I felt like 1,000 arrows pierced my heart. I put down my phone and opened my computer to pull up a video. I always wanted to leave a way out for Nick, but with him pushing me like this, we can only end up in a life or death struggle. The next day, I created an account and posted a video. In the video, Nick was kneeling before me, crying and begging for forgiveness. I was just confused for a moment. "Please forgive me. I have no feelings for her. She kept seducing me and I couldn't resist, believe me." After a while, he got angry and said, "You think I can't live without you? There are plenty of people lining up to write songs for me. Get lost and don't come back." I posted another status on Facebook. "Nick and I have been together from 19 to 29, and I think I've done right by him. As for the rights issue, I am Stella, the songwriter of those songs. The rights were originally agreed upon between us. Now, they want to seize the rights without paying. Of course, I won't agree. I will fight to the end on this." Lastly, the reason for our breakup is because Nick's female assistant has 3 moles on her back. This video was saved from my home surveillance after I left. I didn't save it to leave an out, but to remind myself never to look back. Never thought it would come in handy in this situation. At first, no one noticed my posts on Facebook, but within hours, the post racked up tens of thousands of shares and comments, topping the trending charts. Everywhere, there were tags about us. Nick's ex-girlfriend is actually gold lyricist Stella. Christina's 3 moles on her back. Scumbag Nick. Get out of the entertainment industry. A single stone caused 1,000 waves, and the public was abuzz. Compared to Nick's light post, my video was much stronger. His crying and begging for forgiveness was so dramatic, netizens directly turned it into a meme. Cheating and still turning it into a song. Have some shame, man. This morally corrupt artist should be kicked out of the industry immediately. I suggest a total ban. I once genuinely liked him, thought he was talented. Turns out he was just leeching off his ex-girlfriend's work. Am I the only one who cares that the ex-girlfriend is Stella? I really love her lyrics. They have such a feel to them. Nick's diehard fans were the only ones defending him. The rest were all cursing him, telling him to get lost from the entertainment industry. He had to delete that Facebook post in shame. The backlash shifted entirely onto him, while my followers were flooded with apologies. Stella, I love your lyrics so much. Please keep going. Don't be sad. Breaking up with a scumbag is a blessing. In one day, netizens tracked that Nick went online 58 times. Things escalated quickly, and the intimate actions between Nick and Christina got exposed too. They were like rats in the street, everyone calling for their heads. Christina got fired from her company, and all of Nick's endorsers terminated their contracts with him, demanding huge compensation for contract breaches. The cross-industry drama he was shooting replaced him urgently, and the investors began seeking compensation too. I don't really get these things, but netizens said the total compensation would be at least 2 to 300 million. He's only been famous for a little over a year, No way he could come up with that money even if he went broke. In short, they were finished. Nick called me countless times. I didn't know if he wanted to threaten me or beg like before. I didn't care anymore and just blocked his number. The second climax came when Christina went to prison. The company found contract issues with Nick. A deeper look revealed that Christina, using her position as Nick's assistant, had been taking kickbacks everywhere. Small vendors getting Nick to advertise were signing under-the-table deals, and huge amounts of money went into Christina's pockets. The amount involved was massive, over 8 million, and Christina got sentenced to 13 years. Before going in, she cried and screamed. She had long since spent all that money on luxury goods and other expenses, and couldn't come up with it. She pleaded with Nick to pay it back in exchange for a lighter sentence, but Nick was already in trouble himself and couldn't bother with her. I also went to see her court session. Through the crowd, Christina and I locked eyes. Her eyes were red as she tried to rush at me. "You bitch. It's all your fault, you bitch. Why don't you just die?" I was speechless. "I don't know if I'll die or not, but your life is over. Go in there and sew. Maybe I'll get to wear the clothes you make." When the sentence was announced, she collapsed completely, snot and tears covering her face, unable to pull herself up. I used to hate her a lot, but seeing her so pitiful, all that hate just disappeared. She got what she deserved. I shouldn't waste my emotions on someone irrelevant. That night on the first day of spring, Nick came to find me. He was sitting at my doorstep, with a pile of cigarette butts around him. When he looked up at me, his eyes were bloodshot. I hadn't seen him in a while, and he had lost a lot of weight. His clothes fluttered in the wind, making his bony shoulders stick out. His once proud muscles were long gone, and his cheeks were sunken. We just stared at each other in the dim hallway, neither of us saying a word. After a long while, he spoke first, his voice hoarse. "Feels like a dream. How did we end up like this?" I looked at him expressionlessly. Nick crushed a soda can and lowered his head, hiding in the shadows. After a moment, he chuckled softly. "Stella, you're so ruthless. I never thought you'd go this far." I didn't expect him to play the victim at this point, and my anger flared up. "From the moment you betrayed me, we could only be strangers or enemies. Nick, you forced me." Nick gave a bitter smile. "I brought this on myself. But Stella, I never had them cyberbully you." That Facebook post was Christina using my phone secretly. By the time I found out, the company had already pressured me. I couldn't do anything. I replied coldly, "Does it make any difference?" Nick looked at me, his eyes reddening. "Believe it or not, I never really liked Christina. You are the only woman I've ever loved. But for some reason, after I became famous, I didn't want to come home anymore. I didn't want to lose you. But seeing you reminded me of those humiliating days, when I was hiding in the basement like a rat. I started avoiding home, avoiding you, using other women to numb myself. I never meant for us to end up like this." I understood what Nick meant. Many men leave their wives after getting rich, because seeing their wives reminds them of their miserable past. In contrast, new women only admire their success, giving them endless satisfaction. It's not so much about cutting off their wives, but rather abandoning their former pathetic selves. "But so what?" I interrupted Nick. "Stop talking crap. I don't care about your inner journey. Why don't you try killing someone and then explaining your self-justifications to the police? See if they won't arrest you." Nick looked at me in shock, as if he couldn't believe I was talking to him like this. Right. I had always been obedient to him, even when we were shamefully chased away by city officials. I would just hold him and comfort him, never despising him. "Stella, you've changed a lot," he said dazedly. "How did you become like this?" I laughed. "I treated you well because I loved you. Without that love, you're nothing." With that, I turned to go inside. Just before closing the door, I heard Nick's trembling voice, almost obscured by the wind. "I once worked so hard just to give you a good life, to make you not regret all those years of suffering with me. But how did everything change?" "Stella," he choked up, "how did we end up like this?" I suddenly remembered a New Year's Eve when Nick ran all over the place, just because I casually said I wanted some watermelon. He finally came back with 2 slices. It was bitterly cold, snow covering his head and body, but he smiled with squinted eyes. I didn't bring enough money. After begging for a long time, the vendor finally agreed to cut some for me. "Hurry up and eat." He shoved the watermelon into my arms. I scolded him. "Why'd you buy something so expensive?" I just mentioned it casually, but he just grinned. "If going through fire and water could make you happy, I'd do it willingly." This is just a slice of watermelon. Memories scattered like smoke in the wind. I tilted my head, wiped away the tears at the corners of my eyes, and closed the door. A year later, Bella and I were out shopping and passed under a bridge. I heard a familiar guitar sound. I paused and involuntarily looked back. In a dark corner, a thin man wearing a mask and sunglasses was playing the guitar. He must have seen me too, because he strummed a string so hard it broke, and his finger began to bleed. There was a box on the ground with some change and coins in it. Noticing my gaze, he shrank and looked away. "Who is that?" Bella asked curiously. "Dressed so conspicuously during the day. Could he be a wanted person?" I calmly replied, "Who cares? Let's go. We won't be able to get a table if the place gets crowded. Let's hurry then." The guitar's fading notes were torn apart by the sea wind. I felt Nick's gaze, but didn't look back. He was in the shadows. I was in the sunlight. We were bound to drift apart. This farewell song, both the tune and the person, were wrong. So this is as far as it goes.